All right, test, test. Are we coming in clear? All right, wow. Not gonna lie, that was stressful. I did not anticipate all those updates coming out of nowhere. All right, wow. Not gonna lie, that was stressful. How's everybody doing tonight? I did not anticipate all those updates coming out of nowhere. All right, wow. Not gonna lie, that was stressful. How's everybody doing tonight? I did not anticipate all those updates coming out of nowhere. How's everybody doing tonight? All those updates coming out of nowhere. How's everybody doing tonight? All right, we're going to get started here. I know I'm running behind. It's 16 minutes after. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So we have Hurricane Lee out there. We're going to get started here. I know I'm running Hurricane Lee has popped off. He actually caught me by surprise. I was unfortunately in the midst of filming a video talking about how he could go hurricane, and then next thing you know, oh, hurricane. Lee has popped off. He actually caught me by surprise. I was unfortunately in the midst of filming a video talking about how he could go hurricane, and then next thing you know, oh, hurricane. Oh, you know what it is? It's probably... Unfortunately, in the midst of filming a video talking about how he could go hurricane, and then next thing you know, oh, hurricane. Oh, you know what it is? It's probably... Unfortunately, in the midst of filming a video talking about how he could go hurricane, and then next thing you know, oh, hurricane. Oh, you know what it is? Let me go ahead and fix that real quick. The stream's looking good, though. Let me see what happens if I do this. Hang on a second. Fix that real quick. The stream's looking good though. Let me see what happens if I do this. Oh, why is it getting worse now all of a sudden? Alright, there we go. Now I think we're doing better. All right, so Hurricane Lee, 75 miles per hour. Expected to rapidly intensify over the next couple of days, and right now, National Hurricane Center is going for just shy of 150 miles per hour. Expected to rapidly intensify over the next couple of days, and right now, National Hurricane Center is going for just shy of 150 miles per hour. Expected to rapidly intensify over the next couple of days, and right now, National Hurricane Center is going for just shy of 150 miles per hour. Expected to rapidly intensify over the next couple of days, and right now, National Hurricane Center is going for just shy of 150 miles per hour. Our Hurricane Lee definitely got his act together real quick, too. That's crazy. That is a phenomenal-looking storm. You can tell he kind of kicked the heck out of that dry air. Our Hurricane Lee definitely got his act together real quick, too. That's crazy. That is a phenomenal-looking storm. You can tell he kind of kicked the heck out of that dry air. Our Hurricane Lee definitely got his act together real quick, too. That's crazy. Jova, look at Jova. Storm. You can tell he kind of kicked the heck oh, yeah, wow. Air. Woo! Jova, look at Jova. Now that's a gorgeous storm. That is a beautiful storm. Woo! Jova, look at Jova. Now that's a gorgeous storm. That is a beautiful storm. Woo! Jova, look at Jova. Now that's a gorgeous. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why it's doing that. Alright, we're back in here. I'm trying to figure out why it's going so crazy with the static and everything. I've disabled everything else. I'm trying to figure out why it's doing that. Maybe now we're in better shape. Alright, we're back in here. I'm trying to figure out why it's going so crazy with the static and everything. I've disabled everything else. I'm trying to figure out why it's doing that. Maybe now we're in better shape. I hear the echo again. I wonder what's picking up the echo. Is it my camera that's picking up the echo? I swear, I'm going to get these live streams down. I don't have this problem with my videos, so I figured I could just roll right into this. It seems like the feedback has gone away, though. Is it my camera that's picking up the echo? I swear, I'm going to get these live streams down. I don't have this problem with my videos, so I figured I could just roll right into this. It seems like the feedback has gone away, though. I wonder if I'm picking up... Let me see something. Video capture. Let me get audio capture. Audio input device. Microphone. That's not what I want. I want this one. Okay. Okay. Video capture. Get audio capture. Audio input device. All right. How about now? That's not what I want. This one. Are we coming in clear still? All right, how about now? Oh, you know what? I'm ridiculous. I'm dumb. Sorry, guys. My blonde is showing big time. Let me mute the actual stream. Turn the volume of my mic back up, and now it won't capture the audio coming through the video. Oh, my goodness gracious. It just clicked to me. YouTube was streaming me back at me, so the latency was when YouTube would pick up my audio, it would play through my speakers, and the mic would pick it up and spit it back at you like again and again and again. Oh, Lord. All right. All right. We're back in it now. Jova is a beautiful storm. That's crazy looking right there. Honestly, I agree with whoever mentioned that it looks like Wilma out there. Honestly, that's an impressive storm. There's nothing stopping that thing. All right, let's go ahead and restart. Let's take it from the top. How are we doing, everybody? No, this is not Lee. If this was Lee, I'd be terrified right now. It's moving in the same direction, though. You could have fooled me. But anyways, let's go look at some model data. Let's look at windy.com for the first moment. All right, so here's where we are right now. Let me pull up my Epic Pen. So we can get to some drawing here. I'm waiting for my Epic Pen to come up. Once it does, we'll get into it. Thanks, guys, for tuning in again. It looks like we're off to the races now. We have everything figured out. This new computer setup is running phenomenally. We have excellent connection. We're not going to be lagging all over the place tonight. Here is Lee, though. Lee's looking pretty spectacular on windy.com. You can see it's got a nice core really beginning to form. I think we're starting to finally see that rapid intensification that everyone's been talking about. Let's zoom on in here real quick. Look at that. Wow. Let's see how far up it stacks. Anyone want to place bets on how far up this thing stacks in the atmosphere? I'm thinking we're already peaking at 300 millibars. We're probably already up to jet level, especially if this thing's going to deepen real quick. Yeah, seriously, Lee, you got to chill out. Oh, yeah, definitely. Let's go over to Tropical Tidbits real quick. I'll wait for you guys to drop the bet in there. Let's see who wants to place a bet on how far up this storm is stacked. But let's go to Visible Shortwave Satellite. I noticed when I was shooting my video, there was a lot of overshooting tops right around the center. Yeah, look at that. That's incredible. Got a perfectly symmetrical center of circulation now. Here's where the eye is. We're probably going to have an eye form up by tomorrow. This is going to be an intense storm, and for those of you joining in right now, the main reason I'm bringing so much awareness, and a lot of us are bringing a lot of awareness to this storm, is because of the fact that it's expected to deepen so dramatically. Looks like the potential for U.S. is starting to decrease, but what I think might happen is it might be a threat to Atlantic Canada, most likely. You know, that's definitely what it's looking like. That's definitely what the trend has been. It actually looks like the GFS ensembles have cleaned themselves up. Originally, there were still some ensemble members that wanted to track it off to the west and then maybe closer to the Carolinas, but we're once again back to a bit of a better agreement that it's going to head off to the north and northeast, which is not good for Bermuda. Bermuda is right here. And the more this thing tries to track towards the east, the worse it's going to be for them. But yeah, for those of you tuning in as well, I'm going to tell you right now that we're still so far out from this storm being anywhere close to reacting to environmental stimulus, is what I'll call it, the steering pattern out there, that I've made it known in some of my videos that for folks to be calling a landfall, or for folks to be mentioning that this could possibly impact here, or getting as into the weeds as New York or the coast of North Carolina, we're still way too far out for that. And the pattern that's really going to steer this storm is still setting up. It's still setting up. Here, let me shift my camera real quick because I keep looking back at the live stream, or the chat, I should say. I'll go ahead and turn on one of my ring lights. There we go. I'll turn this one off. Much better. There we go. All right, cool. So, yeah. In this case, I got to go with it's a he. I mean, Lee is definitely a he. I'm not trying to be a poet right now. Lee is that terrifying Greek god-like guy at the bar that so happens to be the #1 UFC heavyweight is walking over to kick your... That's funny. So actually, for those of you in here right now, before we continue on with talking Hurricane Lee, I'm going to show you, for folks who haven't tuned into my most recent episode of Weather Center, there's something interesting I want to talk to you about. And it's not anything that is likely to take shape in the near-distant future. And in fact, oh, look at that. There's actually something trying to sneak through the pattern. That's been on the GFS now for a little bit. There's a storm late in the month that's trying to sneak in and make its way towards the coast. And it looks like it has a bit of a better chance of making it closer to Florida, because take a look at the pattern to the north. We have all high pressure ridging right in through here. So this thing could possibly continue off to the west. Now again, don't take this as end all be all. This has trended, I believe, twice now. Let me go back in time. I believe it was on 6Z, so it wasn't on any of our actual Maya. Look at that. And that's not Lee right there. That's not Lee. That's a different storm altogether. And the model's called... There's Lee. And if you go through time, on the 6Z, we have another major storm moving through. Let's see if it was on 0. I haven't been really paying attention too much to long range. There goes the GFS trying to form something in the Gulf. That's interesting. Let's go to 12Z, see where we're at. 12Z, we had something. That's what I wanted to talk about earlier. That's what I want to talk about right here. Look at that 998 tropical storm that the 12Z GFS is populating in the Caribbean. I made mention of this in episode 22, which, by the way, if you guys haven't checked out episode 22 of Weather Center Nazario, you got to look at that. This is all hypothetical. I know we just saw the GFS had washed this out on 18Z. We'll have to cycle back through at 0Z and see if it reappears, but I'm a little concerned if we get a storm that forms up in the Caribbean, because with the entry of fall getting closer and closer, you see up here we have a 1021 high that the GFS is predicting, and we have this cold frontal boundary draped across the northern portion of the state and into the Gulf of Mexico. If we get a storm that forms in the Caribbean at any point in time, from now up until the end of hurricane season, and the timing is right, a Florida landfall is inevitable. We've seen it a number of different times. We've seen it several times, and history does tend to repeat itself in that department. Now, for those of you in the chat, we're over 100 viewers now. I'm going to mention once again, this is at the very end of the latest, well, not even the latest, this is a 12Z GFS. This is September 22nd, and 18Z doesn't even have it on there anymore. We have a Cat 2 hurricane to the north of the Dominican Republic, so you can say that was a huge change between 6 hours. But the whole premise I'm trying to make here, the whole point that I'm trying to make here is, if we get something in the Caribbean, I'm going to immediately call a Florida landfall. I'm going to immediately call it. And I know I'm not National Hurricane Center. I'm not a degreed meteorologist just yet. I'm working on it. I got about a year and a half left, and I can finally say I'm meteorologist David Nazario. But basically, guys, the main thing I'm trying to point out here is everyone's fixating on Lee. Lee is going crazy, and no one's paying attention to what could happen after Lee. The Canadian model has been very, very good in picking up on different circulations that could form up towards the back end of Lee's life cycle. Like, see, if you look at this shot right here, I'll go forward in time just a little bit more. This is a very cluttered mess. That's a cluttered mess. Like, we have Margot up here, we have Lee down here, we have, who would that be? Margot, Nigel, and then we have Ophelia back here, and then we have something else coming off of Africa. Like, that's why I'm saying, like, we get these lower latitude storms that try to make their way into the Caribbean. You look at this right now, and take a look at the pattern over the United States, and I'll go ahead and really briefly go through a little bit of my old, I'm going to crack my knuckles, I'm going to do some good old synoptic work right now, my good old synoptic analysis I used to do all the time in Air Force weather. So we have our low right here, and I'm going to get a purple marker, and we're going to draw our occluded front. There's our occluded front. Here's our cold frontal boundary draped over the eastern seaboard down into the Gulf. You can follow that banding of precip. And let me get my red marker, and we'll go ahead and draw our warm sector. And then we have another low out here, warm sector. Let me get my blue marker, and we'll go this way. And I'm not just making this up. I'm genuinely, like, if I had my mentor, Mr. Castle, in here, he would approve of this. I'm not even lying. I used to do this. I used to do a lot of synoptic meteorology. I did 7 years of synoptic analysis in the Air Force before I separated last year. And the reason I draw this out, I'll go ahead and erase the ink down in this area, is let's say, for instance, hypothetically, let's take this 977 Cat 2 hurricane, and let's put it right here. Let's just fast forward, hypothetically. If we go through a system moving in like this with a high pressure dug in as far south as the Central Plains, Middle Mississippi Valley like this, that's a Florida landfall. I'm going to put my hand, that's a Florida landfall. And that's whoever, I have 136 people in here now. And I know that there's a lot of people starting to comment on my more higher traffic videos saying, oh, you're hyping and you're fear-mongering. And first of all, in any of my videos, if you go look, I haven't been as bold as I am right now to say landfall. I have not done that. I'm not an official source. I'm not degreed yet, so I can't really say and make a prediction to that caliber. I can only give my thoughts on the big picture. And looking at this big picture, that's exactly Elite Chief Stark. That's a Tampa Bay landfall, if not a Fort Myers, Sarasota landfall. And I know we're fixating on Lee, and I know Lee is the talk right now, and that's the hubbub, the trend, but I'm just making it known that I've been noticing recently a lot of people are getting a little complacent. I mean, we had Idalia, yeah, but if we get another Idalia form up in the Western Caribbean with all these fronts and these deep troughs coming off the coastline, like I'll go to the upper level dynamics, we'll go to 500 Heights. Look at that. Look at all that troughing in the blue there. With these deep troughs, anything, let me switch back to my marker again, anything in this general area, anything right in through here is coming at us, regardless. And I'm very confident in saying that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Anything that forms down in the Caribbean is coming towards us. Whoever lives in here in Florida, that's definitely what would happen. We saw with Ian last year, textbook with Ian. My favorite hurricane to date, Hurricane Charlie. Let me see if I can go on the interwebs real quick, and while we're on the stream, especially since it's working. This is a beautiful thing. I'm excited. Hurricane Charlie radar loop. Let's see if I can pull something up. Let's go to, see if there's any images. Let's see if we can find a GIF. Here we go. Pull this up. See if it'll expand. All right, it's not as big as I would like it, but if you look here real close, this here, all this, you see what's happening in the satellite image here, that expansion of the light colors, and then down here you have that thin band of convection and thunderstorm activity. This is Charlie. This is 2004. This is Friday the 13th. I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan, and Charlie came through on Friday the 13th, ironically, and it came right through the Central Florida Peninsula, and Ian almost did the exact same thing, although I will still argue come hell or high water, Charlie was worse than Ian, in my opinion. And you go back to the CMC, the Canadian model, middle of September, and you have this deep trough axis right in through here. That's exactly what is likely to happen. So if we get, say, for instance, this guy or something coming off the African coast that manages to work its way through the MDR and into the Caribbean, we got to watch closely because we have stronger fronts coming in now. And with the fronts coming in much stronger, they're going to pick these storms up and move them a lot more quickly off to the east. See, I don't know. Antwill 07. I mean, I only say that Charlie was worse because of the impacts we felt in Central Florida. I was not down there in southwestern Florida when Ian came ashore, and I know that he was right at about the same intensity when he came inland as Charlie, albeit slower moving. But the reason I argue that Charlie was worse because of how fast it moved. And you look at the terrain in Florida, and that storm was a Category 1 hurricane when it came offshore, headed up towards the Carolinas. We got lucky. I mean, don't get me wrong. We got lucky with Ian. I tell a lot of my friends and family that. Like, if Ian had moved through at the same pace as Charlie did, we would have got wiped out. Florida would have been gone. Because had he not weakened down from that Cat 5 he was right off the coastline, if he punched through going as fast as Charlie was, forget it. I don't even know to shoot. I mean, in Central Florida, when Charlie came through, we were without power for a week. My neighborhood was destroyed. Roads were out. It was bad. And that's the only reason I will argue that Charlie was worse, because the impact associated with his hurricane intensity was felt for a larger area. Ian, however, because it was so slow moving, it wiped out a portion of Florida and then kept going. What are your complete thoughts on a possible landfall in the Northeast? It's a little tough to say because, again, let's go to the Euro. If you look at their latest European model, in fact, actually, this model, shucks, you know what? That's kind of concerning looking at this. I didn't look this far out on 12Z because when I shot my video, it wasn't fully populated. But looking at the 12Z Euro, I would actually say the Northeast, up in this general area, there's a little bit higher of a chance that we could see a landfall in there because we get this cutoff low that just kind of detaches itself from the upper level flow of the jet. And then here's our other low, cold pocket and trough that was supposed to dig down across the East Coast and drag it out. But looking at this latest run, the very back end of it, that trough doesn't do anything. And you can see it in Lee's forward progress. There's a clear turn to the west right in this general area. If you watch it closely as you go forward in time, there's that little hike off to the west. Good for Bermuda. Taking it away from Bermuda, we'll only see some good surf action out of it. But honestly, it's still so far out to say. Just looking at the big picture pattern at 500, let's go to 200 millibars, see what the jet's doing. Yeah, see, so, I mean, we have a trough digging down over the Gulf Coast, but that's not going to push it to the east. We have this ridge trying to back build, and with that jet max going over the apex of the ridge, this ridge is only going to continue to build up. I bet if I go back in time, yeah, look at that. As we get that shared energy between outflow of Hurricane Lee, I was almost going to say Ian. When we get that outflow with Lee coupled with the jet max rounding the apex of that ridge, that's why our subtropical ridge is building up so much. So actually, I would almost argue that the Northeast has to watch out a little bit more. A little bit more. All right, let's see. I got to catch up with the chat. We have 200 people in here now. Wow, look at that. It could be another Sandy. It definitely could be another Sandy. Do you think Lee will be retired come spring of 2024? But keep in mind that European broad is subject to change. I don't know if Lee's going to be retired unless we see a landfall out of it. If he just hangs out over the ocean and goes off to become another Bear Clinic system with jet support, then I don't think it'll be retired. Yeah, I live in Central Florida near Lake Mirror and Ian hits with a strong tropical storm. Yeah, and Ian also went much further east than what the National Hurricane Center and what a lot of us were even expecting. Because I know when I was doing coverage on Ian, and I honestly wish I had my YouTube channel when Ian was coming through, I was doing like round-the-clock coverage. No kidding, my Kat and I, we were up every other hour, if not every hour on the hour, watching the satellite, watching the radar, and just watching this thing trudge through Florida. I think it came ashore September 27th at about 4 o'clock, and it didn't really start affecting where I live in Central Florida until about almost 3, 4 in the morning the next day. And Florida is not very big, so for it to take that long, it was crawling. Still not as slow as Francis and Jean, though. Francis and Jean in 2004, I feel like they stuck around Florida for a solid 2 days. There's a 917 millibar low near Antarctica. Lee has a goal there. Yeah, Lee definitely has a goal there. This storm has little to no chance of making landfall in Miami. Yeah, no, there's very little chance, very little likelihood. And I know that a lot of people have been mentioning that it was, September 28th. I know it was end of September. The days blurred together with as long as it took to get across us. Are there any of the storms that are going to form in Africa, Middle East that could be a potential big storm, EC46 model? Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and, instead of talking about models and whatnot, what I like to do is lean in on analysis data. So let's go ahead and take a look at Africa real quick, see what's on the horizon. Because there's no better data than live data, in my opinion. Let me see if I can find it here on cyclonic weather. I think we're getting close. Let's find Africa. There's Middle East. Very familiar with that area. Here we go. All right, so we're in the middle of the night, so we can't really see a whole lot out there. Maybe if I extend the satellite loop a little bit. Your birthday, I'll never forget. I'm not going to lie, Elite Chief Stark, that's awesome. I mean, this is not Weather Center Nazario. This is just Extreme Weather David talking. That's pretty awesome. So we have our next disturbance. It looks like this is going to be the bad guy that comes off and turns into Nigel. And then we get a little bit of a lull here. I don't really see too much in the way of thunderstorm activity for at least a few days. And then there's a couple of different entities. There's a weak feature right there. We have some thunderstorm activity down here, which could make it across Africa with the steering flow. And then we have another system back behind it that just blew up over the Red Sea. Or I should say the Persian Gulf almost. No, never mind. I'm off. That's over here. My bad. I couldn't see the Saudi Arabian boot. But there's definitely a few more entities out there. And take a look at this. You can see the remnants of Franklin right there spinning, getting wrapped up in this trough axis. I'm kind of, interested in the fact that Hurricane Center was thinking of trying to re-intensify it again and trying to give it tropical characteristics. I mean, is it in an area that it could possibly do so? Absolutely, but you take a look at the satellite, and you can see that thing is smothered by jet energy. I wouldn't be surprised if it's got a warm and cold sector. If we do get it like another Sandy's type of storm, it looks like this one could be as a 970. Yeah, you never know. T.G. Herman, good night. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. Guys, we're at 211 viewers. That's exciting. That's awesome. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'm very thankful that the stream is cooperating, too. This is great. Yeah, with as far north as it's going to move, I definitely don't think Lee is going to hit with the same intensity that we're predicting out over the Atlantic. We're going to see some pretty explosive cyclogenesis with it, some really good deepening with it, but once you get into the northern latitudes, I really don't think it's going to really pack as much of a punch. Any recent trends with Lee? Thankfully, same as always. It's kind of right on track, still moving off to the northwest. In fact, I think last I looked at the visible satellite, it's moving a little more aggressively off to the northwest as well. Actually, look at Invest 96L. Let's shift gears real quick. This storm's getting some good symmetry with it, too. Look at that. It's starting to get some convection right around the center. That's looking pretty good. We might have another tropical depression here within the next 24, 48 hours. Let's go back and see what they're highlighting it. Yeah, the next 48 hours, 40%. They brought the formation chances back up to 70%. Diva Jefferson, thank you so much. I'm having a great time with you guys, honestly. This is what I was hoping for, just having a conversation, looking at the weather. They still have Franklin out here identified as a 30% chance of cyclone form. What in the heck are they doing? I feel like they're just doing that to troll us. Some of the hurricane models have to be nailed to Dahlia within 25 minutes, blah, 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 some ridiculous. Yeah, let's take a look at some of the new forecast models. But it looks like we got to watch out for Margot. Margot might try to sneak in under the radar here very soon. With everyone talking so much about Lee, this thing looks like it's getting its act together. I go back over to cyclonic weather. Look at how much activity we're seeing around Invest 96L. This is something that we should also pay attention to. I mean, I'm not saying anything's going to come out of it, but I know last time I checked, a few of the models were trying to, look at that, yeah. Some of the models were trying to really organize this storm and pop it off just like Lee. Maybe not to the extent that we're expecting with Lee, but it's definitely a possibility. And then this is like a textbook fish storm. You know, I get that there's a lat line, or I should say a longitude line that people typically follow, but that is a textbook fish storm. That is far away from any major landmass, and it's not going to pose a significant threat. The Cape Verde Islands are getting a lot of good thunderstorm activity, though. I wonder what kind of winds and whatnot they're seeing out there. I think a potential landfall from Outer Banks in North Carolina to at least southern New Jersey looks to be an outlier. Yeah, you know, if I were to, and this is just me being, again, hypothetical, let's go to the East Coast. We'll go to eastern U.S. Let's see what the GFS is thinking. GFS brings it up towards Nova Scotia and then really hard curves it out to sea. In my previously professional opinion, I'd say from the Manhattan Island area up, we got to start watching out. Unless we see a significant change in its forward progress and a lot of ensemble agreement, I think from the Manhattan Island area up, that's where you got to watch out for some potential impacts, if not a landfall with this storm. Yeah, I agree. Invest 96L probably be our next hurricane. Absolutely. Jova will most likely be a Cat 5. I'm surprised it's not already there yet with as impressive of a satellite image we just looked at. A Cat 5 does have a mind of its own. Shucks, that's like what they used to say in Twister, the finger of God, the F5. Side note, I don't know who in here was a fan of the original Twister movie, but I'm a little scared that they're actually making a sequel to it. I never saw that coming. A reboot or a remake, yeah, but a sequel? Like, I'm a little nervous this is going to end up just like Independence Day. Independence Day in the late 90s was phenomenal. Phenomenal. And then all of a sudden we got Independence Day Resurgence, and that was like okay, you tried. That was a swing and a miss. It was cool to see Independence Day again, but I kind of feel like that's what's going to happen with Twister, and I'm a little nervous. I think Margot will be a hurricane. Absolutely, I agree. Cat 5 in mind, but yes, I love that movie. I'm still here saying it. What would make Henry type of landfall? I forgot Henri, not Henry. Excuse me, Henri type of landfall. What are the chances that Hurricane Jova breaks Hurricane Patricia's wind record? It's possible. I think Margot will be always to 1.5. Twister 2 featuring a real tornado. Still love Twister. Absolutely don't think they need. No, I agree. Spider-Gwench, they don't. Like, that's a sequel that no one's asking for. A lot of the new generation probably don't even know what Twister is. They probably either think the board game or some kind of weird social media trend or something like that. Sequel has a bunch of storm chasers involved, like Pico's Hank. Okay, all right. That like elevated it a little bit because I like Pico's Hank and I watch a lot of storm chasing footage. I'm an OG Twister lover. The new sequel looks really cheesy. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. They have all these new actors in there, and I don't know if you could ever replace Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, Philip Seymour Hoffman as Dusty. The whole cast was just great. Like they were an ensemble bunch, and it was Twister that first ignited my love for storms. And then when Hurricane Charlie hit in 2004, that's when I knew for sure that I'm going in and I'm going to be a storm chaser meteorologist when I grow up. What year is Twister? Oh gosh, I know it was like the mid to late 90s by director Jean Dubont. Also made another spectacular film, whatchamacallit, A Speed with Keanu Reeves. 1996. I was going to say, I know it was mid to late 90s. There it is, Twister 2. Twister, starring Daisy Edgar Jones, Glenn Powell, Anthony Ramos. I don't even know who any of these people are besides Glenn Powell. I know Glenn Powell was in Top Gun Maverick. That's about it. I'd be asking the same thing. Is there really a Twister 2 movie? I'd be saying the same thing. Like, what the? At that rate, instead of giving us a Twister sequel, just bring back the ride at Universal Studios. Yeah, if there's a sprinkle of picos and company might dampen the cheese a bit. Hard to improve on a class like that, though. Almost impossible these days. Yeah, exactly, I agree. Do you expect any Fujiwara effect between the... You know what? A great question, T.G. Herman. I've been noticing that. I've noticed that. We could get a pretty solid Fujiwara effect up there, at least according to... even the GFS kind of has it on here, too. We get them to merge towards September 17th and 18th, but I know the Canadian model is getting them real close together. See that? Looks like they could merge together. So actually, yeah, it looks like Fujiwara is definitely becoming a lot more likely as we go on. We have this barotropic system off here, the mature wave up over, what is that, Quebec or Ontario? I'm just going to say Eastern Canada. We have this huge occluded low system right in through there that's going to push them off the coast. And they could merge somewhere in this general vicinity because this is just going to get pulled in while this evacuates up to the north. And that's two different main model runs or main model platforms calling for that. So it'll be interesting. Once again, Elite Chief Stark, I 100% agree with you. I still remember going on the Jaws ride when I was super young with my grandma and grandpa, and that's another great ride they got rid of. They got rid of all the awesome rides. Terminator, I don't think Back to the Future's there anymore. Twister and Jaws obviously are gone. I think there were some Men in Black. No, Men in Black is still there, I think. Martha's Vineyard. Have you watched the movie The Day After Tomorrow? That was another decent one. That was definitely more Hollywood magic, but The Day After Tomorrow was a good one. That's right, the King Kong ride is gone. Jova's a good name for a hurricane. I agree. Going over us, Pi Canada. I think Jova will be 170. Oh, a collision. Yeah, now that is exciting. I agree. Yeah, no, that's coming. That's looking a lot more likely. As a matter of fact, I think this has been trending on the Canadian model as well. No, never mind. Actually, the Canadian model has made a huge change in its forecast. If you guys see what I'm seeing, there's been a huge deviation between Canadian model runs. That's kind of incredible. So you take a look at this, and we have a very strong polar high right over top the upper Great Lakes. And our low, actually, and this is not tropical, our low undergoes cyclogenesis just to the south of the lower Great Lakes and northeast states, begins to form up right there and move east, and finally builds in with a strong warm sector. That's a lot of stratiform precip for the northeast. This model run definitely shows that we'll see Lee stay well off the coast. That's good weather for us in the southeast too. That's really good weather if this pans out. This is an old model run, and it already changed dramatically. You go to 12Z, and it's a night and day difference. Look at how much more poleward that low is. And it does not look like we're going to have nearly as much cold advection down over the southeast. That's maybe why it wants to keep Lee a little bit closer and draw in Margot. The Canadian model's definitely picking up on a triple threat, or a triple on... Never mind. Definitely picking up on a trio coming off of Africa, though, if you look at that. I mean, we have... This could be Nigel. This could possibly be Ophelia trying to form up. And then who is the P name? Look at the water vapor 2-kilometer satellite for Hurricane Jova. This thing won't hit Florida, bucko. 1% it does. I agree. Could this thing hit Florida? No, I don't believe so. Hopefully these two collide. That'll be very exciting. That'd be awesome to watch on satellite. It's definitely looking a lot more favorable, that's for sure. Has had some awesome weather lately, especially. Oh yeah, no, the Florida Peninsula has been glorious in comparison to the humidity and the hot weather we've had most of the summertime. Let's shift gears though, and let's go to some of our outlier models. We're gonna go to weathermodels.com, and I actually saw, if you guys are familiar with Mike's weather page, he shared some statistics about a few other models that we typically don't look at all the time. And I'll be honest, and I'm not fibbing, you can take a look at my Instagram page. For those of you who don't follow, once again, I'll type it in the chat. If you want to take a look at my Instagram, I post a lot of static updates and other little reels and info down in that area. But Mike's weather page actually shared some statistics about different models that were accurate, not so accurate with Idalia. And if you look at some of my content, and listen to some of my videos, I'm always referring to the UK Met and the KMA, the Korean model. I even look at the Access G sometimes and the naval model, just because in the weather realm, you never can have too much evidence. So let's take a look at what the UK Met is thinking here over the next couple days in terms of the tropics. Because the UK and the KMA models were actually the more reliable ones, apparently, according to the data with Idalia. Mike is where I've used him ever since 2020. But yeah, I've been looking at SpaghettiModels.com and Mike's weather page for a couple years now. We were still cleaning up from Fiona last year, and the Eye of Lee is going over us again. Prince Edward Island. Oh Lord, please don't say that. That stinks. And I have 231 people in here right now. 231. And I'm gonna go on my 60-second rant, and I'm gonna call it after that. But hearing stuff like that there's folks up in East Canada still cleaning up from prior tropical systems, it bums me out when I get comments and commentators who claim that just because it's not hitting U.S. or hitting the Florida coast or something like that, it's all hype, it's all hearsay, you're just trying to scare people. But then you hear things like that, and you hear testimonials from people who do get hit and are put in harm's way with these storms. It brings a new light to the awareness behind them and why we do the things that we do. All these off-brand models could be onto something. I agree. That's why I always look at them. Sometimes you do a little bit of verification and initialization, and you can tell when models are completely out to lunch and you don't want to use them, or you might want to pay a little more closer attention. Jovez Windsor, 155 miles per hour pressure, 930. That's going to go Cat 5 if it deepens any further than that. Mike's weather page is a Florida treasure. Absolutely. I wish I could do a collaboration with him. I popped into one of his streams and was trying to collaborate, and I got accused of self-promoting, so I've kind of just gone quiet in his live streams from here on out. But I love collaboration. I love conversation with other weather enthusiasts, meteorologists alike. Chi, Cuddy, JD, NFJ, when will you do your next live stream? That's going to be Friday at 8 p.m. Right now we're doing this at a steady tempo of Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 p.m. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Tropics Talk, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Whoops, I didn't capitalize the T, but you get the message. Hillary is the only storm that could be said is overhyped. It still did a number on the Southwest, but I agree. There were a lot of people who were flipping out about Hillary, and Hillary was all over the place. Hillary was on all the news outlets and whatnot, and we've barely seen any coverage on Idalia. No, this is probably tough to answer. Would Lee be slowly approaching if it did make landfall in the Northeast, so it will be over cold water more so? That's another reason why I don't think it's going to pack as much of a punch. We have a lot of the upwelled waters out there. We'll use this chart as an example. Actually, you know what? No, I think I still have my... Yeah, here we go. Let's go SST analysis. Here we go, right here. North Atlantic. So we have a tremendous amount of upwelled waters out ahead of it. So once it gets past where it's expected to really undergo this rapid intensification, as everyone loves to say, between there and there, I think that's game over for it. That's a wrap. Unless it decides to hug the shoreline a little bit closer, or at least try to, and get over those Gulf Stream waters, it's going to run into some really cool water. I mean, you look at that anomaly chart, and that explains that's 2, if not almost 3 degrees colder than the surrounding waters. So, you never know. Don't worry about the haters. I agree, Christine. Thank you very much for that. I'm trying not to be discouraged, but I'm trying to also remember that I'm not an official source, but I at least have some military professional experience I bring to the table. So I know I'm a little more official than some folks on TikTok and other social media who are like, watch out, it's coming to Florida, guys. So probably not, but if the Bermuda High comes back, I think this would be very possible. Yeah, we're going to have to watch that for sure. I was looking back at Andrew and Dorian time lapses. Do we think it could maybe do an Andrew or Dorian? Andrew, based on the synoptic pattern, the big picture weather pattern, I really don't think so. I don't think that's what's going to happen. We would have to have something completely disrupt not only the long wave pattern, but the lower levels as well, with where our systems are all stacked. I've also noticed a lot of other enthusiasts on social media, they don't refer to WPC as much. And I love going to WPC because I don't have access to my 25th Operational Weather Squadron charts anymore. So I like to go to WPC to get an idea of where they're thinking all of our frontal systems and our highs and lows are over CONUS. It's a great way to look upstream for what we're predicting out in the Atlantic. And you go down towards the weekend, and there's our first frontal system that actually doesn't look like it's going to make it very far, at least according to their more recent mock surface analysis. Not until the 12th on Tuesday do we finally see it begin to push out and then frontalicize, and then there's our next system. So that is just a bit worrisome as well. That could have an influence on where it goes. Because if we're not anticipating much cold air advection back behind this front in question, this guy right here, and it's going to linger along the mid-Atlantic states, northeastern coastline, not even make it down into Florida. What a shame. Then we got to wait on this guy and see how fast it can swoop across the plains into the Appalachians, get across the Appalachians for that matter. Because that's another thing too. You got to remember basic, cold versus warm. Warm air is less dense than cold air, so cold air is going to stay closer to the surface. So the faster it can get over the Appalachians and make its way into the Atlantic, and what's cool is you can kind of see it on these charts as well, what I'm explaining. You go from 12Z Saturday to Sunday, and then into Monday, you can see how fast we go from the Dakotas, Minnesota, down into the Central Plains in 2 days. But then look at how it kind of slows down a little bit, and the front becomes distorted between here and there as it runs against the terrain, and then finally begins to escape 24 hours after that, and even then it's still not off the coast. This storm is having a mind of its own. You are for sure better than the chick calling for a Cat 6. I finally got a chance to watch that video, and I was sitting there like this the whole time. Like, what in the heck? I watch these channels not because I see her clues during Ian until it was too late. Keep warning people. Thank you. Christina's... There might be multiple Christinas watching at that username. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I agree, Christina. And that's the thing, too. Like, you can call it any kind of amount of fear-mongering and hyping. First of all, as an enthusiast who is really passionate about weather, of course I'm going to get excited about the weather. When there's, who's ever been excited as a meteorologist to say, we're all clear, 100-degree weather, take 4 showers in 1 day. That's it. Or do you want to talk about the intense stuff? I mean, it's the same thing with regular media. Good media, unfortunately, just doesn't sell. I mean, I love me a good story, a happy ending, but a lot of the times the big heavy hitters are, murder in this precinct or hit and run, yada yada, armed robbery. Those are the breaking news headlines. So when you don't have anything exciting to report on, then what's the point of even reporting? When in this case, we have a storm that's trying to give Wilma a run for her money, so heck yeah, we're going to talk about it. And I agree, Christina, as well. Like, it's not even a matter of, scaring people. And that's one of my main arguments I have with folks who want to claim that we're fearmongers. First of all, if you're paying attention, it's just like when you prepare for a test in school and all that. If you're scared of the test, then you're obviously not well prepared for it, and you probably could have done better. If you're scared of a storm, then the likely end result is you didn't prepare and take heed like we tried to, give you some situational awareness on, and that's why you're panicking. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to blur the lines between I'm scared that my house could get destroyed or we could lose a vehicle and stuff like that. But, on the same token, if you're freaking out over Idalia or something like that while we have all this preemptive warning, then you're probably dropping the ball on your end of the spectrum. Do you think Lee could pull a Matthew? Maybe anything's possible always. But David Schulter, do you mean David Schlotauer? Not David Schulter, Fumchum. But David Schlotauer, yes, was in this chat as a matter of fact. I don't know if he's still in here. I haven't seen him chime in at all. Maybe he departed already. But David Schlotauer is also an amazing resource. Same thing with Pat's Pat Predictor. I think I saw Weather Girl Danny mentioned as well. We're all always in collaboration. We're always talking. The only folks I have not been able to wrangle in yet are Mike's Weather Page and Ethan's Life also pointed him out. Ryan Hall, y'all. This may be a little ambitious. But they always say you got to shoot for the stars, right? But I want to be of the same caliber as Ryan Hall and Weatherman Plus and Mike's Weather Page. I've been told so many times through the years that I have what it takes to make it on television, and I have the personality and the intelligence to pair the two, and I might as well, run with it. And I figured, you know what, when I saw Idalia might be taking shape out there, I figured I'm going to go for it and full send, and here we are. And I really appreciate you guys. I mean, we're at 224 viewers right now. That's amazing. That makes me, we're at 228 now. That makes me really excited. So I can't thank you guys enough for that. And Lord willing, these streams will continue to grow. My page will continue to grow. Do you ever hear of Mr. Weatherman Brian? Oh, yeah, I've been watching Brian Shields since 2004, as a matter of fact. Brian Shields, Tom Terry, Tony Manolfi. Who else? There's a few other broadcast meteorologists I like to watch out here in Central Florida. So, yeah, I always tune into Brian Shields on a new video basis. Same. Weatherman Plus, I was watching him real heavily during Ian last year. I watched Ryan Hall, Weatherman Plus, David Schlotauer, and now you're added to my go-to list. Heck yeah, I appreciate that. Elite Chief Stark, thank you very much for that. I started watching you when you nailed the forecast track on Idalia. Thanks for your service. David Edwards, I appreciate that. I actually jumped out of my seat when I went way back in time, and, well, not way back in time, but you know what I mean. I went back in time, and I saw my first video before Idalia was even mentioned, like before it was in the Pacific, moving into the Caribbean, and I verbatim jumped out of my seat because I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, I said that? And verbatim in my episode, I said I could see this coming up towards the Big Bend Panhandle area. And what do you know? What do you know? Maybe I do know a thing or two about weather after all. Jim Cantori would row his canoe to Lee. Probably. You're doing an awesome job. Found you during Idalia, and I live about 15 miles above Cedar Key under the gun. We were prepared because of info. Well, thank you very much, Jacob. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that these resources are reaching people. That's exactly the whole point. It's not about scaring or hyping. Yes, I'm going to get excited because I love fascinating weather activity. Obviously, I'm going to be hyped up. Not going to be... So we have Hurricane Idalia. It's coming. No one's going to watch that. David is simply, I agree. Hi, Nazar. I like your streams. Good job. Thank you, Yvonne. I appreciate you popping in. Maddie, you ever heard Dennis Phillips? The name sounds kind of familiar. Maybe. What about the unlikely storm being presented by the GFS? Which one? Because the GFS is doing as GFS does once again. Let's reel it back in again, and let's go back to GFS. We'll go to 12Z. And... I'm really curious now. I don't know if I'm going to be up that late. We're already after 9 o'clock. We've been on the stream for almost an hour. We'll probably call it good in about 10 minutes or so. I'm really curious now to see if the GFS is going to trend that Caribbean storm, because I've seen hints of it before that. Let's go back to 0Z, do some investigating, and see what's up. Yeah, see, it doesn't really have anything. I mean... You could kind of make a case that it's alluding to something in this little band of precip. It looks like there's a small little closed-off isobar down there. Something in the Gulf of Mexico came out of nowhere. I'd take that with a grain of salt. And then we have this major hurricane out over the Atlantic. So GFS is definitely being GFS. Let's go back even further in time. Let's go to 12Z on Tuesday. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Maybe it has been trending. Maybe it has been trending. There's a depression out there in the Gulf, and this is Tuesday at 12Z. Let's go back to 0Z. It might be a little too far out to find it, but yeah, it's still a little too far out there, although it still shows a little bit of energy coming off of South America and working its way up towards the Central and Western Caribbean, so that's a little... might be onto something. We might be onto something. The GFS is trending. That's 2 different model runs. We've seen something in the Caribbean. And there it is as of today at 12Z. And I'll tell you right now, if that pattern sets up and we have this gnarly 1022 high coming down out of the plains into the Midwest, headed towards the Texarkana area, that's a Florida landfall. I'm not backing down from that either. That's when you come at me and you put the gloves on and say, you're fear-mongering, you're hyping. I've seen that before. We've seen that before. In Air Force weather, they also taught us that when the models are at bay and the analysis, and you're in like a data-sparse area, pattern recognition is your best friend, and I'm recognizing that pattern. You look at that. We have a frontal system stretched all the way down here. We have our system forming up. That high pressure's coming down to the south real fast. Whoops, I'm still on my pen. that high pressure is coming down real fast. And look at that. Look at where the system is now, where the front is. That storm is going right over Florida. No question. No question. It's going right over Florida. So we gotta. I mean, I'm still not really. I'm getting excited naturally because looking at it, but I definitely don't think that that's gonna happen. If it does trend a couple more times, if we see it on a 0 or 12Z run, maybe we ought to look out for it. At 12Z, it started to, I accidentally clicked on 6Z. So at 12Z, we started to see something at about 330 hours, so no other model is going to catch up to that as of yet. We still have a long ways away before the models like the Canadian and the Euro can start to pick up in that time frame. Let's see. You probably also heard of Glenn Richard. Glenn Richard I have, yes. Yeah, definitely seen that before many times. Agreed. Yep, pattern recognition. At least it's not the NAM model. That model is crazy. I agree. Very good for frontal systems and systems over North America. I definitely would rely on that. We actually disown whatever that is. But is it only the GFS model showing it? Ethan's Life, yes it is. But as I just mentioned, the only reason it is the only one showing it is because it's so far out in time. We don't start actually seeing it out there as anything in the Caribbean until maybe 306 hours out, 300 hours out, and none of our other model platforms go that far out. So we'd have to give it at least another week before other models could possibly start to detect it at the 200, 240 hour out. When storm over Florida? Now, Carmen, don't take it as reality. This is just all hypothetical. This is way towards the very end of September, and the only reason that I take this with a little bit of, I might want to look at this a little more immensely as we go forward in time is because you look at Climate Prediction Center, their most recent update, and look at that. The Atlantic is expected to start cooking again between September 20th and the 26th, and I don't find it super ironic that GFS wants to form something right as we go into that range. So I know GFS is maybe 5% accurate that far out, so very, very low threat that that's actually going to happen, but there's a couple different things lining up the evidence, so Alex, welcome back. Can you play the UK video you never played in the models? Did you say yes? All right, sorry about that. I got distracted. Let's go back to UK Met. Ooh, excuse me. This is 12Z of the 6th. Let's take a look at what we got going on. So see, the UK model definitely keeps it a little closer. Definitely keeps it a little bit closer to our Lesser Antilles. But then it's also really picking up on a powerful trough over the Great Lakes, extending down across the country. And even before the rest of the model is done, like even before we get further model data, you can already see that there's a clear turn right in through there. Here's our ridge. We can already see the escape route. So this model doesn't really show anything different. Let's go over to the Canadian. Let's go over to the Korean model, see what the Korean model's showing. This is 18Z. We can only go out so far. Very good run-to-run consistency. Let's look at 12Z. 12Z, same thing. Yep. 12Z has it going straight up to the north. Looks like it could possibly be an event for the northeast, though. So that's a couple different model parameters indicating it. Goes out 288 hours. So there you go. I'm talking about that one that comes after Margot. Nigel. Lee has winds of 80 miles per hour. 900. Oh, was there another update? Let's go take a look. Let's refresh. Oh, it hasn't come through for me yet. Let me click on it. Public advisory. Mine hasn't updated yet. It still says summary of 5 p.m. How about when the GFS thought Idalia would only be a Cat 1 and hit Apalachicola? Yeah, it's true. The GFS does what GFS does. That could be Nigel or Ophelia, depending on what else forms. Exactly, I agree. Thank you for answering. Of course, Carmen, absolutely. Ophelia seems like a menacing storm name. It does. I believe there was a tropical storm Ophelia many years ago, too. So that's another name that's being repeated that hasn't been retired yet. Yes, but it is too far out to know if the impacts Florida East Coast. Should I be looking out? You should always be looking out just in case. I've never tried using the Korean model before. I don't use it per se. I just use it as a little ace in the hole or ace in the pocket, however that metaphor goes, just as, an extra small layer of evidence that if you're not buying into the GFS or the Canadian and all that, then you'd look at the UK and the KMA and all that, and they're showing it too, so it builds a little bit more confidence. Something about Ophelia. What's your estimate on Jersey getting hit by some part of the storm? Like I said earlier, if anything, at this point in time, based on what we know and what the model data looks like, I would think anywhere from Manhattan north should start to look into a couple things regarding this storm. I don't think Lee will make a landfall in the continental U.S. as a... No, it won't. It definitely won't. You go back to that SST chart. Where is it? I had it up. I don't think I closed it. Here we go. You go back to the SST chart, and it's not looking too good for you. You have a very small area of potent Gulf Stream water as it juts out into the Atlantic, but look at all that turned over water in response to, I keep on wanting to say Idalia and Franklin. So yeah, no. Once it gets past this general source area, that's when we're probably going to see it either try to self-sustain or even weaken. The letter with the highest chance of retirement is W, as 1 in 3 W storms have been retired. That, and I would imagine the I storms as well. How would you compare the individual ensembles to the windy ensembles? So windy is actually just the European. So windy is all Euro information. You can switch models, but windy primarily feeds off of Euro data. Most people think I'm insane when I get excited about these storms. You are not insane, T.G. Herman. You are in the right stream if that's the case, because one day... I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but one day when I have my atmospheric science degree and I could use the title, I'm also going to coin myself as extreme meteorologist, just like Reed Timmer. Mark my words, because I definitely love all things extreme weather. Like, I'm that guy who will definitely run head-on into a tornado. I want to drive into a hurricane. I've gone outside during... completely washed out sandstorms. I've been out in blizzards. I've been hailed on, almost struck by, the whole thing. The only thing I haven't seen yet is a tornado. One day. I'll mark that off my bucket list. Unless it moves further west, then yes, mostly a Cat 2. Yeah, if it can kind of hug the coastline and tap into those Gulf Stream waters, we'll see it kind of hold on to intensity. But right now, just looking at the latest anomaly and the surface chart in terms of what the temperature looks like over here, you can see it. There's a lot of colder water up there. I mean, looking at actual sea surface temps, there is a small window for it to maintain intensity, but it only continues to cool off as you get closer and closer to the coastline. So I don't think we're gonna see it blow up and then start to fizzle out. I think that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be like almost a pulse-like scenario where this thing just rapidly deepens, and in all actuality, these storms are like internal combustion engines on a car. And I don't know how many of you are into cars at all. I love cars. Yeah, I can one day show you guys my fully raced out Mitsubishi in the garage. But it's the same thing with cars. You have your conservative builds, middle, modest horsepower, can run reliably for a while. And then you have your high horsepower builds out on the drag strip that are good for like 1 or 2 runs. Anytime you have a high horsepower project, in this case this would be a high horsepower hurricane, it's not built to last. It's good for 1 or 2 solid runs, and then it's going to wear itself out. I got super excited when I got a direct hit from Nicole. Nicole was an anomaly last year. Nicole hit us right around Thanksgiving time, which is crazy. You don't ever see that. Nicole formed up, and I kept trying to tell people when I was working as a personal trainer at a commercial gym around here that we got to watch Nicole, because she came up out of the Caribbean as a completely ragged, extratropical, broad, low cyclone. And then all of a sudden it acquired really good tropical characteristics a couple 100 miles off the coast, and then boom, I remember waking up the day of landfall and it had blossomed into a Cat 1 hurricane. What about Connecticut? I'm a single Graham who suffers from anxiety and I'm scared. Connecticut, I wouldn't sweat that too much. For now anyways. Right now, let me go ahead and look up the latest ensembles for the Euro as well. Let's look at 12Z ensembles just so we can get an idea of what kind of likelihood we're seeing. Because there's some, but not a whole lot of agreement that we could see it scrape the coastline. For example, you come right here and you can see that a majority of the models still keep it well offshore. There's still a few outliers that want to bring it in a little bit closer. And as a matter of fact, we got to look because there's something trying to sneak in under the radar right in that general area. You go forward in time, and you can see some of the members popping off, and then there's something else back behind that comes off right in through here and then moves off to the west. So there's a couple other cyclones that the Euro's picking up on that could try to sneak in below the radar, trying to pull a James Bond on us while everyone's honed in on Lee and what looks to be Margot very soon. There's a couple other little guys out there that I'm watching. They think they're going to be slick, but they're not going to. I also wasn't expecting a hurricane in Brevard in November. Heck no. No one was. I was hyped about that, though. It was round 2. And I remember watching a Weatherman Plus video, and there was almost talks of a third one forming up, but it just never came to fruition. Lover of storms. I'm a huge lover of storms. I should say lover of phenomena. You know, Mother Nature is literally Mother Nature. She does what she's going to do, and she does what she wants to do. You can't encapsulate Mother Nature in a box. It's just not going to happen. And if you do, it's like opening Pandora's box. The storm I was most excited for was Hurricane Irma. Irma was crazy, though. Like, Irma definitely tore some stuff up. I feel like the best analogy is the New England hurricane in 1938. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at that. We'll get rid of WPC. Whoops. There I go. Not being able to type. You can tell I'm getting tired. New England hurricane. There it is, 1938. So there we go. That looks kind of reminiscent. You know, that looks fairly... We started out at a lower latitude down in through here, but this is looking very this is looking very similar. As a matter of fact, very similar when you think about it, because if we go back to earlier in the stream, I had mentioned that we're seeing a very slow westward jog on the Euro. So I'm telling you, from Long Island right there and further north, we gotta watch out. As far as interior Connecticut, though, I don't think they're going to see anything nutso from it. By then, it'll have definitely weakened down. It'll be nothing more than just a little bit of wind and a lot of rain. So we'll definitely keep you posted, but I don't foresee it being that intense. Willow, what are you doing? 1 second. Weather Center Willow is acting up again. What do you think you're doing, mamas? We're almost done. Come on, come here. Oh, this is Willow. She's been through... she doesn't want to be on the stream today. She's been through 3 hurricanes. Idalia, Ian, and Nicole. Hurricane Dorian was enormous and parked over the Bahamas. It was just crazy. Do you go into the field and chase or hang out in the studio? I haven't had the chance to go chase just yet. I wanted to get up for Idalia, but I couldn't make it. But during Ian, I was outside almost every step of the way, and the same thing with Nicole. I was outside, strapped up with my weather gear and my camera. Isaias was my favorite here in Miami. I agree. That was another storm that kind of snuck in. We were without power for 3 weeks with Irma. That was hard. I can only imagine. Wow. I don't even want to imagine that. Shucks. And I thought a week after Charlie was bad. Although I think 110 mile per hour landfall in New England, and it could be a broad system because increasing last wind and surge will be a problem. Agreed. With it being that close to the jet and that close to a baroclinic system, it'll probably go almost post-tropical before it gets up there. And thankfully, we don't have any potent winter systems coming across the upper parts of the United States, because we won't get another Superstorm Sandy pan out, hopefully. What are your thoughts on stronger storm usually don't turn as much? So actually, that's a common misconception. Stronger storms will turn faster because they'll have a lot more, potent energy and rotation with them. So you take in the laws of physics, they'll move a lot faster and want to spin up to the north as opposed to a slower rotating storm. And then any little difference in the pressure gradient associated with it is going to be in a much more intense force field to it. Let's say, for instance, we'll do some doodling here. Let me go back to one of our charts. Let's take, for instance, this 1027 high, and we look at this 992 low. The gradient in between the two is strong, but it's not as strong as, say, for instance, we'll go back in time to when Lee is out there. This 942 millibar low. So when you have a high button up against a low of that magnitude, the pressure gradient is off the scale. The gradient force is off the chain. So that's why it's going to be influenced a lot more by high pressure and cold air than it would be a weaker storm. So it could be fairly destructive. It could. We're going to still have to watch. We have a little over a week still before it comes close to any kind of coastline. Hurricane Hugo knocked out power for over 3 months. Woo, in the verge. Wow, we had no Thanksgiving or New Year's. You can forget about that. It was a tough... That definitely does sound like a tough time. I'm sorry about that. Wow. Weather Girl Danny has officially joined the chat. It's kind of unfortunate because we're getting ready to log out here in a little bit. I'm so sorry about that. We've been on for an hour, 10 minutes. We still have 200 viewers, though, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, to quickly recap, we're still talking Lee. Everyone's talking Lee. Lee is going to be talked about. Lee is Lee. Bruce Lee. Jet Li. Chun-Li. No, just kidding. My Street Fighter folks out there. And then it looks like we have a couple things still trying to take shape on the horizon. Got to watch for our Caribbean entity way down the road. We've seen it trend on 2 different model runs. 12Z on Tuesday. Actually, you know what? That is 2 consecutive 12Z runs, now that I think about it. I'm doing the math, and 2 different model runs. We have something forming out there. Let's go way back in time. Let's go 12Z Monday, see if anything's on there. Nope, wishful thinking. Wishful thinking. Let's see, we have 18Z Euro data in. Now that's really interesting. Did it do that at 12Z with Margot? The heck was that? Did you guys see that? Watch what happens to Margot right here. It's like the low center just gets entirely displaced as it moves through. So there you go. And then all of a sudden it just jumps. See that? It traverses hundreds of miles in a span of 6 hours. That's really interesting. And then reforms before chugging off to the north, getting closer to our Fujiwara encounter, unless the northern apex or the northern extent of this front pushes it off, which it looks like according to this model it will. We have our front draped back in through here. So if this pans out, looking at the front at the surface, this is 12Z Euro today. This will keep the northeast safe. That right here is a huge force field. You have a 1025 polar high moving east over the northeast. So yeah, that's going to keep the northeastern states safe. That'll hike it out to sea for sure. But if it makes landfall in North Carolina, it will definitely... Cat 3 would be my prediction. But just looking at this in of itself right now, it doesn't seem like that's likely. I truly think that if anybody needs to be watching, and I've hammered this home in my videos, is Bermuda. Bermuda really needs to watch because they could take a hit from a major hurricane, and that'll be devastating for them. And then I'm sticking to my hypothesis of New York area and further north should take a look at that, or at least be watching it. I've been in and out multitasking. Oh, good. So you've kind of checked in from time to time. I like that. Do you think New England is preparing for another huge storm? They could. They could. Looking at this right now, though, I don't see that happening. You're not scaring people. You're showing possibilities. Yeah, you know, I had someone earlier today like spamming the heck out of multiple viewers of mine. You know, I'm doing a briefing on different storm, probabilities and just looking at the different outlooks on the models, and dude's coming in there, nothing's happening. And I told him, folks, or I should say, I told him only folks who truly understand the way weather behaves will never call anything fact until it happens. So, because that's how I view it. Weather's going to do what weather wants to do. We can try to predict it, and that's what we're here for, is to try to make predictions. But at the end of the day, it isn't hard fact until it happens. Otherwise, it's just a prediction. It's a hypothesis. It's just a theory. Are there any storms that beat the Bahamas worse than Dorian? Maybe back in the early 2000s, because they got a lot of them that came through there. Dennis, Floyd, Aaron, they had a lot of really major storms that blew through there, but still Dorian was parked over them as a major hurricane for at least a day or two, if not longer than that, so I don't know about that. Hurricane Sandy repeat? Possibly. Depends on what the interaction between Lee and this frontal system is like. It could get wrapped up in it and turn into a baroclinic system and get steered by the upper level pattern as opposed to the low level pattern. Dorian is the strongest recorded to hit the Bahamas and all that, because I'm rooting for my girl Wilma in 2005. Wilma is still the deepest recorded hurricane ever on the Atlantic side of the spectrum. 882 millibars. Like, imagine if an 880... Okay, that makes sense. To hit the Bahamas, I agree. But imagine... Because Wilma hit Florida, too. She swooped through in a couple hours. But imagine if Wilma had held on to that sub-900 threshold. That would be something for... I mean, it is in the record books, albeit over water. But that would have changed the face of Florida forever if it had hit at 800 some odd millibars of essential pressure. That right there would be a Cat 6. I'm going to say it. That would be a Cat 6. Because that's just... I can't even think of a proper adjective to describe that. And yeah, Wilma hit Cancun. I don't think she was at that 882 central pressure, though. I think she did weaken down a little bit before making landfall. I think she was still a Cat 4, though. Like I said earlier in the chat, high horsepower storms, they're not meant to last. They're going to explode and erupt, but then they're, going to blow off the steam and blow a head gasket, as we car enthusiasts like to say. As we get ready to wrap up, if you guys have any additional questions, spam them out in the chat. I'm here to answer and talk to everybody. I'm going to go back over and let's take a look at Jova again, because Jova just looks wild. Let's go to water vapor and see what it looks like. Dang, look at that. That is crazy. That's amazing, though. Look at how let's go to, actually, you know what, I'll do you guys one better. Let's go to Weather Nerds and let's try to zoom in on this a little bit. Weathernerds.org. See if we can zoom in on that. I want to see that eye up close. Any projected hurricanes in Florida in the next 2 weeks? Going to Orlando. I said, oh, well, come on out to Orlando. The weather's been really cooperative. In fact, we got to start watering our lawn again because we haven't gotten much rain recently. But not by September 15th. We were talking that there's very, very faint whispers of something forming in the Caribbean, but I don't know if that's really going to happen. It's GFS being GFS, so take that and do with it as you feel. Let's go over to the East Pacific and zoom on in to let's get a real close look too. Let's try to zoom in up close to that center. Dang, look at that. Woo! That's a beautiful thing. Just like in, you probably put two and two together as a personal trainer. I'm into bodybuilding and fitness and all that. But I'm a big fan of symmetry, and dang, that's gorgeous right there. Perfect. You could play... If any of you guys are horror movie enthusiasts, you could play the Saw theme song and just look at that jigsaw, that saw blade turning away in the Pacific. Textbook saw blade, too. You can even see a little bit of... I'll pause the loop. That's a textbook saw blade right there. Because you can even see the little bladed edges right there. That's crazy. That's a terrific looking storm. Dangerous storm. That's a bad day for whoever ends up flying or sailing into that. But that's a textbook major hurricane. Textbook. Like clockwork, literally. Jova to Lee, get your pressure down. Yep, those are rookie numbers. You got to get that pressure down. Better to see it away from land. Oh, yeah, that's the same thing with Lee. That's another reason why I wish people would stop saying we're hyping. No one's really saying that it's going to impact anybody. It's just really exciting to see something blow up the way that it's going to. How many horses does Mitsubishi have? A little over 300. She's still on a conservative tune right now, but full bolt-ons, upgraded turbo, and I had her tuned on 91 octane while I was stationed in Arizona. So one day when I can revisit that project, I'd like to get it tuned on 93. And I know out here in Florida we have E85 or ethanol fuel a little bit more readily available. So I might even try to, get a flex fuel tune or something like that. It's 9 days out from being close to shore. It's too far out for the models to tell where. I agree, Elizabeth. I mean, we have a good idea of where it could go, but again, like I said earlier, there's really nothing factual until it actually does it. Super cyclones are interesting to watch far away from land. I mean, that's just like a stationary tornado. They're cool to watch from far away, but if they're coming towards you, that turns into something totally different. I wouldn't say worry about anything next, but going back over to the Canadian model, the Canadian model has been really good at picking up systems out there in the Atlantic as they come off. We're looking at that triple threat scenario right out in this general area. I'll switch to my yellow marker. Right out in through here. Looks like we could see a surge in activity. Now, the kicker is if they're going to travel up in this general direction or if they're going to go in this direction. Because just looking at the track history of all of our storms, they're all going to end up just curving out to sea. I mean, unless something breaks in the synoptic pattern and we go from meridional to zonal. Now that I have you guys in for a live demonstration, when I say things in my videos like meridional or zonal, meridional, if you think of it like the ocean waves, meridional would be deep trough, strong ridge or high wave, then a low wave, and then a high wave. That would be meridional. Zonal would be just flowing west to east. And this is in terms of your jet at 300 millibars. We'll come on over here to 200 millibars. And this would be a meridional pattern right here. So you have a deep trough extending down here and a mid, or extending northward ridge, and then another trough right in through there. So this would be meridional. And let's see if we can pick up on a zonal flow out here. There we go. So, I mean, still a little meridional, still a little amplified. You can make a case that that's a little bit of a broad amplitude ridge right there, a little bit of a trough, and then another deeper trough closer to Europe. But you see this west to east flow right here just cutting across the northern hemisphere? That is zonal flow. That's zonal flow. Could you change the thumbnail on some of the things with an arrow pointing towards flow? No hate, just misleading. See, all right, I got a comment earlier today. I forget who it was. I hope it wasn't you because I'm going to put him on blast. And someone mentioned, why you always got to draw an arrow towards Florida? Now, look, guys. First of all, for my Tropics Talk, I have an arrow pointed towards Florida because that's where I am. That's where I'm hosting Tropics Talk. I have a giant hurricane symbol on there. And we all know that anything that forms in the Atlantic typically goes west. So, that's why I have the arrow going west. And then me standing there all, my suit, chilling. Hey, guys, Tropics Talk. That's the main reason I put that there. Other videos, I got to look back now. Now you have me feeling a little self-conscious about my videos. Let's go ahead and we'll look at that together. Let's do some constructive criticism on my videos now just for the future. Because if I'm ever going to get to the likes of Ryan... Yeah, see, there he is right there. Well, let me go back. Now it's... Oh, man, now it's a... Yep, now there we go. See, so I have me, Tropics Talk, and then that arrow because that's where Tropics Talk is being hosted. I'm not saying that there's a hurricane coming. It's just, stationed out in Florida, and yeah. Don't be scared, pray, prepare, and keep informed. Always have evacuate. Yeah, and it doesn't take much. Like Elizabeth's saying, it doesn't take much to look at a couple things and figure out what it is that you need to prepare. If your area has ever been hit by storms in the past, you know exactly what to expect and where the worst for wear areas are. Most have drawn that on their thumbnails too. Yeah, I mean, it's, I used to watch a lot of videos about making it big on YouTube and, providing folks with attractive thumbnails. And when it comes to weather, because of the ambiguity behind tracks, sometimes... It goes without saying that it could go this way, it could go that way. So it's sometimes better to just have a big old arrow showing a general direction, Look at the water vapor, 2 kilometer for Jova. Most of everyone on coast should always have a hurricane. I agree. Elizabeth, once again, speaking facts. Lee will shock everyone, watch and see. Hopefully not. It's so hard to figure out whether or not a storm is going to hit a specific state. It really is. We can only do so much to kind of check out what's going on. VI butterfly message was retracted. It can be hard. 10 days is too hard. Be patient. It is. We only have a bit of a idea, a theory on where it could possibly go. Everyone should have a plan and kit ready every year. Yep, for sure. Yeah, Lee will definitely shock everyone by going right back out to sea. I mean, that's not that shocking, but, I guess. It'll shock Bermuda if it hooks back towards them. That's who I'm really concerned about. Hurricane Jova looks like something you would see out of typhoons. I agree. That thing is a monster. Let's see what kind of winds we have going on in there. Just for shoots and giggles, and then I'm going to call it out, or I'm going to call the video. Let's go to other regions. East Pacific. Wow, this doesn't have anything on it. What the? Let's go to 240 hours. See if we can find it. Are we looking at the right model? There's like nothing out there for Hurricane Jova. What are you doing, Canadian model? Dang, I think I've lost all faith in the Canadian model. This thing has like a tropical depression on there. And clearly that's definitely not a tropical depression. You look at that thing. Wow, that's a bummer. Let me go over here and see if it's... What is going on with that right now? Where's the Western U.S.? I don't think we're going to see it on this OI. Let's go to Eastern Pacific. We'll go to precip. No, we'll go to lower dynamics. We'll go to 850 millibar. There we go. That looks a little more like it. That makes a lot more sense than what we were seeing on Weather Nerds. Shucks. What does the Euro say about it? I'm surprised it's not stronger. All right. Lee is going to be big. They are really unpredictable because of fronts and different weather patterns. So we just have to wait, watch, and prepare. The whole East Coast needs to be prepared to watch. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Is Florida safe from Lee? Is that guaranteed? It's never, like I said earlier, guys, it's never guaranteed. It's never a fact in meteorology. It's never a fact until it happens. So I would not say it's guaranteed. It's just a matter of probabilities shifting in certain directions. And right now, Florida is out of the realm of anything crazy. So, and keep in mind, Franklin just sent that path and cooled the water, which will help. Exactly. It'll weaken down once it gets into that upwelled water. It's expected to be a Cat 5. It can. Are they increasing the strength of that high-pressure ridge? It looks like it. They're trying to build the ridge. The models are. Let's see what some of our high-res stuff is saying now. Let's go to HAFS A. Take a look at Lee. There's a 947 millibar low. Let's go forward in time. We're down to 914 is the lowest central pressure that the HAFS A hurricane model is calling for. Yes, please, Nancy, as Nancy just said, please smash the like button. I would genuinely love that so much. My boy Mario has popped into the chat. The GOAT, bro, is literally the best weather channel on social media. I genuinely appreciate you, brother. Thanks for tuning in. We're on the back end of the stream right now, but I'll give it another couple minutes. Imagine if we see two Cat 5s at the same time with Lee and Jova. It would be like Ivan and Joan in the Western Pacific. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I liked it before the stream started. Thanks, Elite Chief Stark. I appreciate that. That is true. Elizabeth makes a very valid point. So for folks who are still kind of dismissing the East Coast and being very, and you know, I'm not messing, I'm not being rude. I swear I'm not saying this from a negative stance, but for the people out there claiming they know and claiming that they know exactly what's happening because of the models, it's all theory. It's all, again, I got to write this down somewhere. It is, in fact, until it happens. That's when we can say it's a fact. But let's take a look at Hurricane Irma forecast models. So, see, look at that. Well, actually, you know what? It looks like Irma had a bigger spread. Irma definitely had a much bigger spread that could push it into Florida. But if you look at, let me see if there's earlier computer models on here somewhere. Because I know I've seen pictures and imagery of Hurricane Irma's projection, and they had it, yeah, here we go. These are Hurricane Irma's models. See, Lee is not touching Florida or Central Florida. See, I highly encourage you never say things like that. Because look at the Irma models. And I'm not saying that there's going to be a dramatic shift. I surrender. I'm not saying there's going to be a huge shift. But you look at this, that looks very reminiscent of what they're showing right now. And then you look at what happened with Hurricane Irma, and it changed the game. So obviously, things can change. Things can definitely change. It even says it right here. I didn't make this. Models can be off by 1,500 miles this far into the future. See, I mean, it's never... I'll write it in the chat this time instead of saying it out loud. It's never... Florida is untouchable. We native Floridian. All right, now that's true. Can you do a 12-minute forecast wearing the Jason Voorhees mask in complete silence of a Cat 5? Mario, if we get a Cat 5 headed towards Florida, like definitively towards Florida, then heck yeah, I'm dressing up. And I'll just sit here on the chat like, and that's it. Although there is warm waters near the Bahamas, so if it comes up to Florida and goes up the East Coast, that would be catastrophic. Live in Tampa Bay, always pay attention. Good. It's not 100% predictable with weather. We inform it's in God's hands. Pray, prepare. Amen. I say to that, Elizabeth. Figured out the issue for the live. Alexandra, welcome in. I did. And it turns out what I had to do was upgrade a lot of my software. And I finally found out how to change the keyframe rate, so we're doing excellent. There's been no lag, no issues. We had a little bit of an echo earlier. But now we've been doing phenomenal. We've been at it for an hour and a half now. No one knows until 4 days out from Hit USA. Agreed, yeah. Once it gets much closer, I'd say about 2 to 4 days. Within the 96 to 100-hour window, that's when we'll definitely notice where it's going. Yes, it looks good. Good job. Thank you, Alexandra. Thanks for tuning back in. We had a very unsuccessful Tropics Talk on Monday, but it looks like we are back in action and good to go for the foreseeable future. No, this is very. I really enjoy your approach. All the colors make me think of Oya, she of the multicolored skirt. Oh yeah, it's gonna do the wobble the whole way. Wobble, baby, wobble. I need to make a video that has a video of a hurricane track with wobble, baby, playing in the background. Incredible job, the People's Champ. Keep killing it, bro. Thanks again, Mario. Childhood best friend of mine, by the way. Mario Manzi. Met him when I was in my mid to late teens. Even back then, back in 2004, Mario can testify to you guys. I was already talking weather. I was already passionate about weather, talking about Charlie and Francis Jean Ivan, all of them back then. Looks like the highest risk, because you talk about Manhattan going to land in Canada. I think the worst of the worst could be from Cape Cod to Atlantic, Canada. Technically speaking, yeah, I mean, I definitely think, again, from the Manhattan area, Jersey area, further north, that's what they have to watch out for. And that's all going to depend on what that frontal system decides to do as it goes along. All right. I've loved weather since 96, birthday, and Fran, East Coast. I actually remember Fran. I just joined Where Are We With Models. Will I be able to enjoy Orlando next week, or should I prepare for this trip to be canceled? No, Alexandra, I just had somebody else mention Orlando. Come on out. Yeah, we're going to be fine. In fact, the weather in Orlando has been pretty spectacular the last couple days. It's been nice. I even mowed the lawn yesterday voluntarily. We both, our friends group would follow Davis straight into storms. Yeah, actually, Mario definitely... Back before we actually had all the commodities we do now, we would just kind of grab a backpack and jump on our bicycles, and we'd just try to chase down storms as they flew through the Kissimmee area. But let's change the AOY. Let's do a little bit of forecasting for the United States. We'll go to Southeast U.S., and you look at the precip and the moisture out there, and it's looking pretty good. I mean, with that next frontal system, we could see an increase in precip, but I definitely think that once Lee moves across and we get some high pressure nestled in down here, the weather's going to look pretty good as well. Pat, welcome back in, or I should say welcome in. Not a whole lot. We've kind of just been enjoying the fact that the stream has been very cooperative tonight. Everything's running smoothly. I'm worried for my plane. I'm flying there September 13th. Ooh, you know what? I actually know a website that we can look at. We used to use this in our flight weather brief section when I was in Air Force weather. Once this loads up, you can get in-flight hazards on this chart. Let's see if I can remember how to look at it. Let's see. Icing, winds, and aviation forecasts. So here we go. Let's see how far out. This doesn't go out very far. It doesn't go out very far. Oh well. Aircraft reports. So what I'd recommend, Alexandra, is definitely, if you can look this up on, let's go, ADS METARS aircraft reports. So remember that, ADS METARS, if you want to look right before you fly out at what the conditions are like and what the pilots are reporting in the area, then definitely take a look at this website. Like, see right here we have a PIREP mentioning that everything's looking pretty good in Central Florida right now. Time 0132 Zulu, flight level 27,000 feet, type of aircraft, and remarks smooth. So things are looking good out there right now. A little bit of turbulence over the south or along the west coast. Nothing crazy. Negligible turbulence at that. Yeah, everything looks pretty good in Florida right now. I know you said the 13th, but I don't think we're going to have anything big coming through us by then. Where's my weather prediction center? We'll go back to WPC real quick, see if there's a front coming through around then. The 13th of September. Looks like we have a front to our north, and the precip chance is going to increase as that system works its way down, but I definitely would not think that we're going to have anything crazy going on because of Lee. David was in here earlier. I haven't seen him since. He popped in like right as we got started and then disappeared. Any more rain here in Florida? Fire season going? I agree. Tyler, I was mentioning that earlier, as a matter of fact. We've started watering our lawn because it's starting to look a little dry out there. We haven't had a lot of rain recently. Because hurricanes can cause major flooding and some people are in low-lying areas. Some people, how's it going to hold up strong? Yeah, I agreed. Yep. I would say join Pat, but we're actually getting ready to kick things off and head to the end of the stream now because we've been at it for an hour, 36 minutes. I remember Gene make a U-turn. Yeah, you know, got to give it up to Hurricane Gene. Hurricane Gene was definitely one who, as some people have mentioned in the chat, definitely gave us a surprise. Dude was like, you know what? I hear that Busch Gardens is a good time out there in Tampa, so I'm going to go ahead and do my own loop-de-loop and take a beeline straight there. Maybe stop at Universal Studios on my way through. Gene was definitely an anomaly. And what's crazy, too, is we're getting closer to about that time frame when Gene set himself up kind of in the same place. As a matter of fact, actually, what's crazy, too, is if you look at it a little further to the north in the Caribbean, but it almost took a pretty reminiscent track to Franklin. Cut up straight through the DR Haiti, and then it just decided to do its loop-de-loop. So Gene is a testament to, even when the models are saying it's going to go this way, it could go ahead and do a Ric Flair and come back towards us. And Alexandra, if you've got Instagram on there, definitely look me up, weathercenter_Nazario. If you'd like, you can reach out to me on Instagram, private message, or just drop a comment on one of my posts. And I could always give you a little bit of an unofficial briefing as to what to expect. I mean, I have a few years of flight weather briefing experience from the Air Force that I could definitely translate over to your trip down to Florida. Still no Lee update. Yeah, you know, I'm kind of surprised we don't have a Lee update. You'd think by now as a hurricane, we'd start getting the every 3-hour, every 4-hour updates, but I still see 5 p.m. So I guess we'll see what 11 o'clock shows. If I'm still awake by then, it's almost 10 now. I love Busch Gardens. The fence around the Gators is high now because some nutcase. I remember that. Yep, I remember that. I need to take a trip to Busch Gardens again. I also want to go to Six Flags. We don't have a Six Flags in Florida, but Six Flags was dope. One of my favorite theme parks. I'm always, this time of year, that storms go to Florida up the East Coast. Next Hunter plane going in is in the morning, they said, which is weird. That is very weird. How we have better technology now, though. Agreed. It's because there are no watches or warnings in effect. That's fair. Are you going to do a live each night? I want to make sure to join. So I'll go ahead and blast it out in the chat one more time. Tropics Talk will be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I capitalized the T this time. We're going to start off with that, just so I don't overload myself. And as a matter of fact, for those of you watching, what's likely going to happen is my videos are going to start transitioning from the long-winded 6 p.m., 15, 20-minute spiels to potentially an 8 a.m. update and an evening update, because I'm going to be starting a new remote schedule, working from 10 to 7 p.m., so I'll have some time in the morning to pump out an update and schedule it for some time in the morning, and then I'll do another short update and knock that out for around the same evening time that I'm posting videos now. Hurricane Gene is astronomical, prof, to expect the unexpected. Yeah, exactly. Christopher Campfield, 175%. Expect the unexpected. I never, ever would have ever thought that we'd ever see a hurricane do a whole loop-de-loop, and in such close proximity of itself, because I know Ivan came into the Panhandle and then kind of boomeranged way back around to Florida again. But Gene just went like, whoop, and then came through Central Florida, right around the Vero Beach, southern Brevard County area. Kind of close to where Nicole came on, as a matter of fact. Let's go ahead and take a look. I'm actually curious to find out myself. I bet you 10 to 1 it was probably a Hurricane Gene surface chart. Let's see if it'll pop up. So we have this. What do we have on this chart here? That's not going to load in. There's Gene again. Came ashore as a Cat 3 hurricane. Take a look through here. What was it? What did hurricane? What, blah, 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 blah. Here we go. Let's see if they have something in here in the report. Hurricane Gene formed as a tropical depression just east of Leeward Islands on September 13th. We're very close to September 13th. The 40-mile eye diameter was not quite as large as Francis, but the southern eye wall again affected northeast Palm Beach County. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Gene made a clockwise loop for 3 days in the Atlantic north of Hispaniola before moving west-northwest to strengthen into Cat 3. Doesn't say anything as far as... I wish I could find a surface chart. That's what I'd like to look at. This is all just kind of a discussion of the impacts. If I had to guess, though, we probably had some kind of a frontal system or a high pressure tuck itself in just to the north of it and bump it back down to the south. And very similar instance with what's going to happen with Lee. The steering current just kind of died out for it. And once something finally picked it back up, i.e. high pressure in the Atlantic, it decided to just swoop back to the west. Because the report just now said that it took 3 days to do this loop. So what happened was it was probably moving to the north, lost its steering current, something blocked it to the north, and then we had high pressure coming in from the east, and that's what finally slowly picked it back up and brought it into Florida. When I say thin the herd, I mean the northerners who made our state unaffordable move back north. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Again, Elizabeth, speaking the facts. Imagine if Lee pulls an Ivan. Wishful thinking. Alexandra, yeah, definitely terrifying. That's for sure. It's interesting, too. Again, I forget who it was that pointed it out in the chat, but this is just textbook right here that anything's possible. I said it once. I've said it I think 10 times already. It's not fact until it happens. I'm laughing, but it just makes me nervous. That's why. Oh, yeah, you can laugh nervously, of course. I'd do the same thing. Shucks. If I was somebody on the east coast of Florida and I saw a storm just going, woo, and then coming back towards me, I'd be like, you know what? I give up. I'm not trying to expect or forecast or anything like that. Can this be Irma 2? I don't think so. I mean, we're going to find out here in a couple days because it's still in a favorable spot to make that kind of a westward transition, but the likelihood of it happening is very, very low. Very low. Could be Irma. It could be a Matthew. They are all different just to keep watch. Yep. If Africa was not hot and dry to the north nor cool and moist to the south, we would have fewer hurricanes. Yep. It's all because of the African monsoon. The monsoon moisture works its way off to the west and then forms up in the, as we call it, the main development region where the intertropical convergence zone is. We have opposing winds meeting in, and as they form up on that ITCZ, because of the collision of the winds coming in from this direction and this direction, that's what gets that spin. And if they strengthen enough, they break away from it, and that's how we get our tropical systems out there. Satellite bounce in at 77 knots, 85, 90 miles per hour. Let's see. We've been in the we've been in the stream for a while. Let's see what it looks like on satellite right now. Oh, yeah, look at that. Can definitely see an eye wall starting to form up. It's definitely in there. It's looking a little scarce, but right in through here, once the satellite loop catches up to it. Let's see. Let me go down here and stop. Freeze. There we go. Right there. Starting to get something wrapping in of itself. The center's right in through there, so getting that saw blade appearance, outflow on both sides. This is a healthy storm. It looks like it's finally locked out that dry air in this quadrant of it, so we are going to be off to the races very soon. Have a look at Hurricane Betsy. Why does Betsy sound familiar? I mean, familiar in the sense of a storm. Because my dad used to call our old 87 Honda Civic Hurricane Betsy in 1965. Oh, what the? That makes me laugh. Dang, look at that. Hurricane Betsy. At the same time, too. Look at that, September 6th to 13th. So, shucks, anything's possible. Look at that. I gotta save these. For the people out there who are like, it's not going to happen. Like, Can't argue with the data. Look at that. Hurricane Betsy. Who said that? Mark Serency. If I said that last name wrong, I apologize. But Mark, I wish I could give you a beer for that. Look at that. That's really reminiscent of what our early portions of the track looks like too, right in through here. Whoops. Right into this, what is going on? There we go, right in this general region. And then it suddenly just bumps west, and then it's going back to the north, and then, whoa, it bumps south, and then makes a run through Miami. I guess it watched too much Miami Vice and was like, I want to go see if Crockett and Tubbs are out there. This segment of the track right here is, that harkens back to Rita and Katrina in 2005. Because you look at, and Hurricane Rita is definitely, I'm going to look up Rita. Everyone knows Katrina, but Rita is a forgotten entity, and look at that. That's Rita right there, guys. Hurricane Rita was a massive storm too, and unfortunately, Katrina puts this one to sleep. Betsy was the benchmark before Katrina for... Yeah, I agree. That makes a lot of sense. Rita was also another one that slammed hard into New Orleans. Like, New Orleans was battered in 2005. Louisiana and Mississippi, it was rearranged in 2005. Like, look at that. We also saw Rita go Cat 5 out there in the Gulf. So, you know, dang. Both were unprecedented storms. Like, look at that. That's wild. Let's look at Hurricane Ivan real quick, just for the heck of it. Hurricane Ivan was on the same level as Rita and Katrina, it looks like. Ivan, ironically, was more reminiscent of what Idalia did. And it's crazy how they're both I-named storms. There's that giant loop-de-loop that Ivan did. Came back through for a 1-2 punch. It gave us a jab over the panhandle, and it came back with a nice right cross to South Florida. Look at Hurricane Dora, 1964. Hurricane Dora, 1960. Oh, wait. I'm scared. I want to click on this meme, but I'm not going to. Oh, yeah, that one kind of flew the coop as well. Came in west out of the central Atlantic. I love these old vintage charts, too. That's pretty cool. Oh, yeah, look at that. Hurricane Dora looking way back in time. Around the same time, too. Again, the same time. We're on to something, guys. I feel like we're in National Treasure right now. I feel like we're in National Treasure putting the clues together. We're putting the clues together. Here goes Tropical Storm Cristobal. Kind of took the same course that we're looking at right now. A little bit more of a favorable situation. Is this Dorian? Can't tell who that is. The name's all... Oh, this is Isaias. Okay. We've discovered Isaias randomly looking through all these old archives. Who's this? Oh, this is also Tropical Storm Isaias. There's I remember I remember talking about Tropical Storm Fred last year, or the year before, excuse me, in 2021. I remember Tropical Storm Fred. Everyone was all hyped up in Florida, and then nothing happened. This storm was hyped. Everyone was freaking out in Florida, and then nothing happened. All right, folks. Woo. Oh, yep, it's definitely time. All right, guys. I'm noticing the viewers are starting to drop. I think it's time. We have another update in about 55 minutes, Lord willing. Yeah, we'll look at Hurricane Andrew's track, and then that's it. We're done. Hurricane Andrew came up, did the same thing, and swooped west. Hurricane Andrew was such a compact storm. That's what made him so lethal. Like, that, there was no real significant outflow with this storm or anything like that. It was literally just as definitive of a saw blade as you could get. Like, look at that. Look at that tiny storm. Looks like a comet in comparison to, say, Jova out there. And what's insane is you look at it on satellite and you would think, oh, that's not going to do very much. But then you look at the catastrophe that Homestead, Florida had with this storm, and woo. Let's see. What else do we got? Rita scared Houstonia. Yep, Houstonia. I agree that they took a southerly, so we've entered the twilight zone. We've definitely entered the twilight zone. Look at Hurricane Isabel of 2003. All right, just because you guys know you're catering, you're speaking my language right now. Let's see, Hurricane Isabel. Oh yeah, it took kind of the same track and then just swooped in, straight in. Good stuff though. That was fun. Doing some national treasure clue digging. But all right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We will be back again Friday at 8 p.m. Friday at 8 p.m. We will be following a battle rhythm of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hold that one for next time, Hurricane Gloria 1985. We'll remember that for next time. I'm looking at the viewers drop in, and I know that everyone's kind of like, all right, David, all right, let's start backing out. But we figured out the lag, we figured out the issues, and we're good to go. So Friday, Lord willing, we're not going to have any updates. We're not going to have any hiccups, and everything's going to be great. I'll see you back here Friday, 8 p.m. To all of you watching and to all of those who are going to watch the live stream after this. It's a long one, but I hope you watch to the point. So it's not coming up the West Coast? No, Marcia, sorry. Not going up the West Coast. If you mean Florida, no. Definitely not. At least not right now. I don't believe so. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As Elizabeth said, have a great rest of your evening. God bless everybody. And God bless you, Elizabeth. We appreciate the kind words. Any models taking account for the cold wait that Franklin did? As far as that is concerned, intensity-wise, it looks like it, but I don't know if anything else. I mean, I'll look at it later on. I'm just we're going to have a better idea if the models are picking up on that. But again, for those of you who are going to watch this live stream later on, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the continued support that you guys have shown the channel. I look forward to continuing to meet up for the collaborations and the Tropics Talks for the rest of the hurricane season and for the weather events thereafter. Because with El Nino in place, we could have an interesting southeastern weather setup for fall-winter time. So the holidays might be just as exciting. To be determined, though. Alexandra, I'll get back to you. We'll talk Friday. All right, guys? For now, I'll see you 8 p.m. Friday Eastern Standard Time. I got to hit you with the catchphrase. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.